Right. Dave, you can see that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, hey, welcome everybody. I always enjoy the banter before all of these things, so it's great to see everyone and your smiling faces. And Cody's arrived on his planet. We have, it's funny, we started today out going through some of the updates, and we just kept adding the updates because there's so many things going on. So a few things that I wanted to cover, excuse me, that we wanted to cover before we introduce our guest speaker for the day is, well, you can see the agenda there, how we're doing. Want to give you guys a status update. We've now been rocking and rolling full steam here for just over 2 months, which is kind of nuts. We do have our Alaska cruise going on. Many of you are aware of that. Anyway, you guys can read that agenda. I'm not going to read all of those things. So I do want to start with this one though. How we're doing, a little snapshot here. So many of you, if you know me, you know I'm a nerd on many levels. Numbers nerd is definitely one of those. So just doing a little bit of an analysis on how our folks have been doing in the last 2 months, 2.5 months. Here's a little bit of a snapshot that I thought was pretty cool. So our top earner so far, they sold their first application with us in the first week of February. And that person since has now earned just over $14,000 in advance commission. So not too shabby. They're certainly not disappointed at this point. That's one person though, right? So I also want to look at our producers, the folks that are producing on a weekly basis, and not just weekly basis. If you do produce, here's what we're typically seeing. Our average weekly producer is averaging just over $1,200 in advance commission, which is not too shabby. So for you Aflackers out there, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, the advanced commission that we're seeing on this is about a 5-to-1 ratio on an average Aflac plan. And that's not knocking an Aflac plan. That's just letting you know, our big vision that we had in partnering with our Aflac friends is to be able to drive that upfront revenue so that you have that launching pad to be able to start building the renewals in the back end on your worksite product. So that's been pretty cool to see. That was a big vision that we all had in starting this, and partnering with Jesse here is to be able to provide a path so that people could generate that kind of revenue. The last one that I thought was really cool, because this one, I would say not necessarily on our radar to get started with, but we've had so many opportunities coming our way. And so it's been really neat to see some of these exclusive contracts that we've been able to secure. So for example, well, one of them, you already know this, but the Aflac Ancillary, where you have that URL, you can post that out. You can have your fishing rod you can have a fishing line in the water all the time and be generating some revenue without any work, which is great. Same thing coming with Ethos on the life side. So we have that contract ready to rock. And a few other things, like some of the leads that I know you guys have heard about. Some of these leads, we've flirted a little bit with it, but we're so close. We're just waiting on attorneys to do their magic. But we will have a lead source coming here shortly that every single lead is a guaranteed business owner, which is fantastic, because if you happen to sell them a life product and then turn around and happen to close the deal and offer them a worksite traditional product for their company, that would not suck, right? So things like that have just been really, really cool to see. And we're absolutely excited to be able to provide this pathway and help everyone there. So Dave, Jesse, Bo, I don't know if there's anything I'm missing there on anything that you guys wanted to speak to before I move on.
Nope, you're right on track. Keep going, bro. All
right, nice. So next thing up, of course, you probably saw my email. I hope you saw my email. But this is the first week of our contest that we have. We all definitely like to travel. And so here we go. We have our Set Sail in 24 contest going on, the Alaskan cruise. Contest did start this week. It launched. It runs through the end of June. And we do have a few people on the board this week, which is pretty cool. Dave, is it 2 or 3 people so far on the board?
3 people are on the board this week.
Excuse me, and more once those apps process. So we're off to a great start. So make sure you are certainly taking advantage of this. We're going to continue to put some more paths in your way so that you can absolutely qualify for that. We want as many people. We have no cap on this. Dave and I have always been big on hit it and get it. You do the work, you deserve to go. So we want as many people as we can possibly get on that boat. So that's going to be pretty fun. I want to speak to this a little bit. WooSender. So WooSender, as you all know, it's pretty great most of the time. Sometimes not so great. It is a robot, but we're constantly looking for tweaks. We're constantly looking for ways to make it better. We had a great call yesterday, Bo and I did, with the WooSender team, and in particular with one of their guys that specializes in insurance agencies with WooSender. And he gave us a lot of good tips that I wanted to speak to, and some of these tweaks that we're making currently. So one of them is he mentioned the fact that a lot of our leads, yeah, they're inbound leads because they're people that have sought out life insurance, right? They want a quote, they want somebody to walk them through, they want that advocate, but they're not branded with our brand, right? And so nobody is clicking on an OSA website and then all of a sudden getting contacted by an OSA agent or whoever that may be, right? Someone affiliated with us to be able to walk them through the process. So they walk through a Facebook or a Google ad, and then all of a sudden they have a stranger, you could say, reaching out to them, right? So that's part of the reason why there's a little bit of confusion on some of these leads. And so,
Hey, Paul,
yeah.
Can I give an example of that?
Yeah.
And this WooSender, you keep in mind who our clients are, guys, right? They tend to be an older group. And some of their responses, we have the global view of WooSender, so we get to see some funny responses. I read one this morning, and I have to share this one. This is a perfect example of what Paul's talking about, that people don't really understand necessarily who we are. So the WooSender sends out the text. This sweet lady responds back, "What's OSA? If it's obstructive sleep apnea, I don't have sleep apnea. My son does, and he has a machine." So I thought that was a win on making me laugh this morning, reading a response to what's OSA.
I mean, that does come to everyone's mind, I think, obstructive sleep apnea,
Yeah. That's what we were thinking of when we came up with the acronym for OSA. So
absolutely. So, excuse me, there are some things that we are doing to counteract that. So one is continuing to build and establish credibility with who we are and who you are. So a great way to do that is to start generating some Google reviews on the company. So we are going to be asking some of you to be able to do that. Reach out, jump in there, give a Google review on what OSA is doing as you're talking to people, as you're selling people, ask them to give a review. We're going to provide you some tools to facilitate that, to make it much easier for a client to go in and do that. And the reason why that's so important is just the way consumers consume information nowadays. In fact, this literally happened yesterday. We were on with our partners, Jordan and AJ, and they were mentioning a software to go scope out. The very first thing that I did, no joke, and this was before our WooSender call and before we had even talked about Google reviews and things, but the very first thing I did is I jumped into Google and I searched reviews of that company and I read the reviews of the company. That was the very first thing that I did. And so same thing here when we're reaching out saying, hey, I'm Paul with OSA, reaching out to walk you through the qualification process for your benefits here. We want to be able to have that link and establish that credibility of, hey, you can check us out. Here's our Google review. So that's part of it. Another part is inbound leads. So we are actively working on this as well, which of course we do have our lead source right now, which we love the exclusivity of it. But we're constantly looking, of course, for other ways to generate leads and put ourselves in front of people. So one thing that we're working on right now is generating our own through Facebook, Google Ads. And so that will be great because they're going to send people through the OSA website, which will then tie right back into WooSender. And so that's going to be very fantastic as we have somebody that jumps into OSA and then all of a sudden they instantly get a message from somebody representing OSA or one of our affiliates. So those are some things coming up with our WooSender tweaks. Bo, anything I missed there, or Dave, Jesse?
Not for this call. We can get in the weeds on this for hours.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. And then Dave already mentioned this one, but just a quick reminder, we do have our onboarding new agent training next Wednesday. at 2 p.m. Pacific. I will send that link out. It typically runs from 2 to 4, so it's a 2-hour review. We'll go through up soup to nuts. So how to get yourself established, how to walk through the agent portals. We'll walk through WooSender establishment. We'll walk through leads, and then we'll actually jump into the sales conversations and some of the products. So it's an open invitation. So if you've been through it before, you're welcome to join us. If you've not been through it, you can jump on. You don't have to register. We'll send that link out. Just mark it on your calendar and jump on. So that's all for me. You guys have been hearing me flap my lips too much today. I'm going to kick it to our homeboy, Mr. DeGraff. Jesse, I know you have an update for us.
No, thank you. There's nothing more I love to talk about than contracting. So, I sleep, I dream about it, all 50 states. I wish I could go international. One of the things this week, I saw a lot of people getting, their Transamerica writing numbers. One issue that we found out this week is that Great Western or Wellaby is right now somewhat on a hold, is what we hear, for onboarding new agents. So I found it very, very interesting to see the financial impact and dynamics of a carrier possibly reaching some limits and trying to figure out some coverage. So luckily, we are positioned with an amazing company underneath Integrity and YIG that we can easily pivot. So some of you guys have already done a AIG core bridge, because really Great Western was a great carrier, but it was really just our GI fallback option just in case, And so what we're waiting on one more answer kind of today to see if they think that's going to be a long hold or not. But most likely we would like to send out invites to get contracted with AIG. Most likely going out, giving Joelia at YIG the go-ahead, most likely to send out invites next week. If anyone has any questions about that or concerns, let us know. Otherwise, we'll blanket it out to everybody. And so you'll get a separate invite for the Sure LC, and you'll be able to go on and do that. It's just a great thing. If you have someone that wants to buy a product, you want to make sure you have a GI to be able to do that. So that's really all it is. If anyone still has a question about where the status is of your contracting for Transamerica Great Western, reach out to Joelia. She'll give you an update. She'll get back to you. She's on East Coast time, just so you know. And yeah, we're just excited to see. We have probably, I think we're up to 70% have been contracted. So if you're one of those few people that aren't, let us know. And if you are, you're going to want to hear what Bo has to say next about our startup guide.
What's
Bo,
up?
take it away.
Yeah, all right. So you guys have been asking for something like this. And this makes sense, right? You come into something new, and for a lot of us, we need to see a visual path or just something to reference to. So we created our onboarding guide, which on the left will show your contracting journey, where you start, what carriers that you need to get going, and how that process works and where it's at. So it's very clear for you guys. Okay, I start here. You got little arrows that point down to, okay, we have tier 1. What is that? It explains this is your AFLAC final expense, MedSup, and then AFLAC ancillary is also an option. What is that? It's cancer, critical illness, accident, dental, vision, hearing. Okay, now what if I want to sell other carriers? Then you go into our partner YIG, your insurance group. What is that? Well, that's Transamerica. That's the Great Western that Jesse was talking about. So we've created this guide for you. Feedback, of course, is always welcome, you guys. And as we continue to pivot and grow and adjust as an agency, we will continue to update this guide. This guide will be posted on our website. I'm waiting for one more link, and this guide will be posted today. So Jesse and I are working on that one. The enrolling process, so it's very start to finish. What does that look like? You can order leads here. Those leads go into WooSender. WooSender is your CRM. It's your AI. It has automations built in. It helps you with scheduling appointments. Once you get your appointments, where do you go? Here's the links. Now, you might notice there are QR codes. Why? Because some of you like to print. You want this physically in front of you. So as you know, you can't click a link on a printed document. So the QR codes is a way for you to still access those links if you want to print these out, or just click on the QR code when you're in a digital copy. And then of course the resources. Where do I go to learn this stuff? There's a lot of web pages out there, you guys. And sometimes when you guys are asking me like, oh man, where do I go to get this? Where do I go to get that? And there's just so much stuff I'm sending you, and it gets confusing. So we've narrowed it down on the resources. You'll notice that the boxes are colored, right? Okay, so here's our tier 1, here's our Aflac Ancillary, here's our Transamerica, here's our Great Western. You can click these links, go straight to those resources, go straight to the agent field guides to learn all about those specific products and what's available to you. So this is the onboarding guide. We'll have this posted on the website today. Maybe in our follow-up email, we can get Paul to send this out as well. But this is for you guys. So if there's anything you need or request, let me know and I'll get it updated. And that's it for me. I turn it back over to, I believe Paul or Dave is taking it from here.
Let's go to Dave. You got one update, Dave, I know real quick on live data transfer leads.
Yep.
And introduce our guest if you would.
Absolutely. So guys, real quick, we are invested in you guys and the success you have, and we know there's some gold to be found in those older leads. But the real magic happens when we can strike when the iron's hot. And so that comes with jumping in and being able to get to a lead as soon as they're putting in the information. Then as soon as they raise their hand and say, I want information about life, to be able to do that, you kind of have to have a standing order for leads, whether that's 1 a day or 2 a day or something along those lines, or 5 a day or whatever the number is that fits your budget. And so to be able to do that, you've got to kind of make a commitment to what leads look like, but we want to make a commitment back to you too. So those leads are typically $16 after our subsidy. For the next 1,000 leads that we're going to do, we are actually going to cut that cost in half down to $8. So if somebody wants to get on board and be able to get those leads coming in live, so that when they finish filling out that form on a Google or Facebook, it's going to hit your email. So hey, you've got a person live kind of on the hook right now, and we can grab those. So guys, know that we're gonna make that investment here for the next little while till our budget expires with 1,000 leads in there. But guys, that's one of the ways to get strike while the iron's hot. So with that, Paul, why don't you take down your screen? We're going to throw it over to my good friend Sam. So Sam Roberson has joined us from Aflac Tier 1.
Oh, you're still sharing.
Kill your screen there. And hi, Sam. Thank you for joining us. Sam and I got to work together for almost 2 years while I was over with Tier 1 before I joined OSA. Sam is our trainer. She's a field person. She's been a market trainer. She knows the business inside and out. And we're super happy to have Sam jump on to be able to walk through really our go-to product, which is the Aflac product. So Sam, we'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Hey, thanks. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. So what David asked me to do is I'm just going to talk briefly about the final expense product and kind of walk you through who it's designed for and the easiest and most effective way to get information about the product, how to really kind of see which rate they may qualify for, and then get through the quoting and the enrollment process with that. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys and just show you from the start kind of where we would want to begin if I were in your shoes as an agent. So the one page I would probably bookmark is sellaflacfinalexpense.com. And
hey,
you
Sam,
can see, yeah.
Real quick, guys, if you have questions as Sam goes, if you could just please drop them in the chat, and we'll monitor the chat and make sure that those are on Sam's radar, okay? So if you guys want to put any questions of Sam, drop them in the chat and we'll make sure we hit those. Thanks, Sam. Go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Dave. Thank you. So when we look at the final expense product just in general, typically it's going to be sold. You can offer it to anybody between the ages of 45 to 75. And the range is going to be as low as $2,000 up to $50,000, just depending on their age. And then it's a really good product. Now, the final expense, this is not for people who are looking for like a whole life product. I mean, technically it is a whole life, but if they're looking for something to help pay off a mortgage or kind of pay for their kids or grandkids' colleges or leave a legacy behind, it's not for that. Typically, we're going to find the final expense customers are going to be people who have no other insurance in place, no other type of life insurance, or maybe the only life insurance they've ever had was through an employer. It was a payroll sponsored life insurance, and maybe they've retired or they've left. And so they are now realizing a little bit later that they don't have any other type of that coverage in place. And so a final expense was designed specifically to cover just those end of life, like funeral costs, any type of probate costs, because let's face it, not everybody necessarily is going to have an estate established, right? Or may not even have like a living will. And so they do pass on even their loved ones who, they may have been left like houses and cars. You're still going to have to go through probate and pay court costs associated with getting the rights to, either sell those items or, transfer them into ownership names, those types of things. So with Sell Aflac Final Expense, this is going to be the one page that if somebody is if I'm looking to offer any type of Aflac, especially Final Expense, this is my starting place. With Final Expense, it's available everywhere except for the state of New York. But if I wanted to see the coverage map, I could go here. Under Resources, this is where we're going to have, there's a nice little video for you to watch just to get more information about it. There's also some flyers. There are some templates to use for an email template if you wanted to maybe reach out to potential customers or some of the leads via email. There's also the brochure, which you can select the state you need the brochure for and then download it. I heard mentioned earlier, some of you guys like to print, and so it does pull up in a PDF. You would be able to print it. And then there's also some consumer trifold brochures, the postcard, and also the sales guide. So the full, sales guide for Final Expense, all of that is located here under the Resources tab. So really anything you could need from educational standpoint to availability to marketing collateral is all here. So once you have kind of that information, what I really like about it is in the upper right-hand corner where it says Agent Portal. If you click that, that's going to launch you straight into the enrollment site. This is basically the Aetna site, almost mirrors it for the Final Expense and MedSup. But from here, it will also redirect you into the Tier 1 enrollment site to enroll in the Aflac, cancer, accident, critical illness, DVH plans. So again, starting from that one cell, aflacfinalexpense.com, I can get all the information and then both enrollment platforms to quote and enroll. So starting from here, also, the first thing I'm going to utilize is going to be under the products and tools, there's a drug list. Because as you're having conversations and uncovering, apologies. It's allergy season in the South. I am in Georgia, and this morning I thought I grabbed an Allegra, accidentally grabbed a Benadryl. So we're going to get through it. But if I sound a little
Good night,
wacky,
Sam.
This is me awake, pushing myself awake on Benadryl. It's what I get for grabbing the wrong bottle before coffee.
There you
But what I'm making up words here, undercovering. But while you're having those conversations with your client to see what may be the best fit, typically what's going to come up is what has their health been like? Are they in fairly good health? Are they so health? If they had some recent health concerns, and if they've already looked into other companies, or as you know, a lot of times what's going to be asked for, what are the drugs that you're currently on? Me right now, the only answer would be Benadryl, but you can come here, go to the drug list. It's going to pull up. Now, I do not recommend downloading this and printing it off simply because it's a pretty large document. And it does get updated fairly frequently. And so you don't want to print it off. And then in 6 to 8 months, you're using maybe an outdated drug list. And so what you can do here is just type in the name of the drug that they are taking. So if I put in, let's see here. I just started typing in letters, but if they are taking Dantrium, right? So this is the drug here. And then it's going to list the drug and the condition. So if they are taking Dantrium for multiple sclerosis, then when I come over here, I see there's an X under the final expense preferred. So these are the different rates, right, or the plan. So at final expense, you have preferred, standard, and then modified. This would let me know that if they're taking this drug, they're not eligible for the preferred rates, but we could still apply for the standard. They may still be eligible for the modified or the standard final expense. That's just going to help me when I actually go into quote and enroll them. It's going to help me know kind of where to start. And we're talking about price point and those types of things. So I know they're not eligible for the preferred because that's the medication they're taking for that condition. And so just gives me kind of a starting point. If there were X's all the way across, so this bottom drug here, this Descovy, if they're taking that drug for any condition, here you would see X's all the way across. Unfortunately, that's just going to let me know they're not eligible for the coverage, right? So I would have to then pivot into maybe other options, or if there's a guaranteed issue product available to you, something like that. But that drug would eliminate them from being eligible for any of the final expense products, Medicare supplement products, anything like that. So the drug list is available here for that. But again, that's just going to be some, kind of like the pre-work information. Then if we were to, let me go back home. It's thinking, there we go. So that is really, going through the process of having conversations with people and determining their needs. I'm going to go into that drug list. Then to quote and enroll, we would just click on the quote and enroll. You also will have the option to play in the sandbox, which is where we're going to go for this. It's a great way to kind of get practice, maybe familiarize yourself with the questions that are asked on the applications. Just make sure you don't click on that if you're actually enrolling somebody, because there's no way to pull something out of the sandbox into the live production. And so what we're going to do here is it's going to take us into, here we go, got new information here. Right, so little reminders that pop up. And then to get started, in order to give somebody a quote, initially, especially with final expense, what I always tell them, because it's a little bit different than like me coming from Aflac, I'm used to just the ancillary products, right? Cancer, accident, critical illness. I can tell somebody immediately, like, hey, this is exactly what it's going to cost. Here are your options. With final expense, it doesn't necessarily work that way. I can give them a ballpark, but we're not going to know which plan or which rate they qualify for until after we get through the health questionnaire. So if I put in their zip code, I'm going to put in their date of birth. All right, it's going to calculate their age for me. For the effective date, let's say I'm going to look at, say, April 15th. We need their gender and have they used any form of tobacco, in the last 12 months. If we say no, we can go ahead and put in their name, address, phone number. It's not required yet, but then I'm just going to go ahead and view the products. And so you can see we've got Medicare supplement, but I'm going to go into final expense. Again, from here, all I would be able to do is really give them a ballpark. And so I'm going to say, I think we're probably going to be interested, let's say $12,000. And we can really just click any of these and get quote. And I know that based on their state and their age, right now for $12,000, it's going to give me a range, right? So it could be anywhere from 45 to 76. If I had used that drug list, right? So we just went over that drug list and there was one drug that made them ineligible for the preferred. That means if that is who I'm giving this quote for that particular instance, then their range would be anywhere between 58 to 76, because I know they're not eligible for the preferred from the drug list. So we would really just be looking at the standard or the modified, which one they may qualify for. If that's within their range, we do have the riders here, the accelerated death. My recommendation is just to always include the accelerated death benefit. There's no cost to it. It doesn't add any questions. What that's going to do is if they do get diagnosed with a terminal illness with a life expectancy of less than 12 months, it would allow them to go ahead and get paid up to 50% of whatever death benefit that they do have. And the reason I say that is you never know what somebody's financial situation may be in, 5 or 10 years or the next 2 to 3 years. And it gives them the option. Doesn't mean they necessarily have to use it, but they could use it if they want to. And then the accidental death benefit rider, if they're eligible for the standard, that's just going to double the payout if the death is due to an accident. Right. And so you could also, one of my favorite features on here is you could also look at money purchase. Money purchase is great if they know they have if they're working off a budget and there's a set amount that they can't go over. When you do money purchase, you can say, okay, what is the budget that you have for this? And if they're not willing to pay more than, let's say, $80 per month, then it's going to let me know that that's going to be around $19,000, $15,000, or $12,000, just depending on which rate they would qualify for, right? So that would just, again, kind of give you a ballpark estimate, which is all we can do right now. Also from here, I want to go ahead and point it out. When we talked about it's got the single sign-on into the AFLAC enrollment platform as well for the accident, cancer, critical illness. In that case, you could just click here and it's going to do the single sign-on and take you directly into their platform so that you could quote and enroll for that as well. I would click on it, but I got notified about 30 minutes ago as I was joining this meeting that the production site is up, but the site that I have access to where they do all the testing is down because they have an elevation this weekend. So, but that is, you would just click here and it's just going to open it up in a new window for you. But for the final expense, if we're looking at, standard and modified, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the cart. Nothing that we've selected so far is really set in stone. So we're just looking at a ballpark estimate, but I need to go through the health questionnaire to see if they're going to qualify for a standard plan or if they would only be eligible for a modified plan. And for the modified, modified is going to have a lower limit, so they would only be eligible for $25,000. But if they have had something like a heart attack or a stroke within the last 2 years, for a lot of insurance coverage, that's just going to be an immediate disqualification. If they've had a heart attack, a year and a half ago, that would make they would still be eligible for that modified plan. The modified plan also is going to have that 2-year exclusion for death due to non-accident. And so if we do, let's try Peter Pan, their legal residents, and then we're going to start the enrollment. So it's going to take us through the health history, right, or the health questions. It's broken into 3 sections, and it'll tell you here, section A are basically just all knockout questions. So if any of these questions in section A are a yes, they're just not going to be eligible. That would be things like if they're currently in the hospital or in hospice. Also, if they require the long-term use of a wheelchair, or they can't perform, or they need assistance with what are called ADLs, or activities of daily living, right? So that's going to be bathing themselves, dressing themselves. And then in the past year, if they require any type of oxygen, not that CPAP, right? For that apnea you guys were talking about, OSA gets mistaken for. So not a CPAP for sleep apnea, but just any kind of, oxygen for any other reason, or kidney dialysis. If they've been told that they have HIV, if they've been advised they need a bone marrow transplant. So, and these are again, pretty, big things. So they have Lou Gehrig's disease or sickle cell, Alzheimer's, dementia, congestive heart failure. So just know all of section A are going to be knockout questions. If I were to answer one of these as yes, then it's going to tell me, hey, they're not eligible, right? So it's only going to ask the questions that are relevant and that would allow you to continue. So you don't have to worry about going into section B and C and then finding out, oh, they're not eligible, right? So we're going to say no to all of B. And then it's going to show you section B. Section B, if they answer yes to any of these, then that means they are only eligible for the modified plan. Again, the modified plan has a cap of 25,000 is the maximum they could purchase. There is a 2-year exclusion or waiting period for death that is non-accidental. It also would not allow you to ride in or to add any of the optional riders in if they're only eligible for a modified plan. Those are going to be things like in the last 2 years, if they have had a DUI, or if complications such as diabetic coma, insulin shock, kidney or liver disease, and then in the last 2 years, if they've had a heart attack or stroke. So 2 years, if they've had like a heart attack or a stroke or a brain tumor or aneurysm, that would only make them eligible for a modified. So if I answer yes to one of these and then check eligibility, it's going to say, hey, Peter Pan here is going to qualify for a modified. It won't give me the option to add riders. And if I tried to, put in for more than 25,000, it's not going to allow me to go over that. But if all of section B is answered as no, then it's going to take us to section C, which is the final section. So section C is going to be if they answer yes to any of those, then they would be eligible for the standard level plan or the standard rates. And then if they answer no to all of this, that is the only time they would get those preferred rates, which are going to be just the only difference between standard and preferred is the cost. Right. So if they answer yes to one of these, then they get the standard. All no's, the only way they can get that preferred rate. And those are going to be things like within the last 2 years, if they've had a heart attack or a stroke. Let's see here. And so, sorry, I misspoke because it's like, why are they asking that same question twice? Modified, they could get if they've had a heart attack or stroke within the past year, right? So apologies. So within the last 12 months, if they've had a heart attack or a stroke, they can get the modified. Within 2 years, that would put them in the standard category. So if they've had a heart attack or a stroke, and then things if they've ever been diagnosed with something like Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis or have COPD. Again, now we're getting into a lot of the more common health elements, especially as people get into that 45 to 75 age demographic. So if all of these were answered as no, I'm going to check eligibility again. And now they're saying it looks like, hey, Peter Pan is probably going to qualify for a preferred level plan. If any of these are answered as yes, and then I recheck the eligibility, now it's going to just change here and tell me that we're looking at more of the standard. Because he looks like he is eligible for a standard or preferred, then it's going to give me the optional riders. Who's only eligible for the modified, I wouldn't even have these rider options. The thing to keep in mind with the riders, with the children's term rider, I point this out because if they are interested in it, that's fine. But in order to add them right now at the time of sale, they have to have the social security numbers for each of the children that they want to have covered. And it could be their children, stepchildren, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So if they wanted to purchase this rider, they can, but in the instance, especially if somebody's wanting to add the children's term rider for their grandchildren, chances are they may not have that social security number readily available. So I just want you to be aware of that. So if they are interested in the rider, the next question I'm going to ask is, do you have the social security number for the children that you want to include? If they don't, still move forward with the sale. Go ahead and sell, go ahead and sell the final expense plan to them without the rider, because the children's term rider can be added at any point in the future. So she didn't want you to get halfway through, spend a lot of time, answering these questions, and then it asks for the social, and they're like, nope, I don't have it. And then by then they're frustrated. So ask the social question first. If they don't have it, just say, okay, we'll get that, and then we can add the children's term rider later, which is what we are going to do here. So I'm going to say I'm not interested right now. And then it's going to take us into just your typical kind of replacement questions. Do you have any other final expense type of policy? Will insurance applied for in this replace or reduce or modify any existing? And you'll just answer those accordingly. If they do have another policy that this is going to replace, then you're going to choose, okay, what is the name of the insurance company? We have almost everyone, I think, listed in here. The face amount, if they know it, an estimate's fine. Policy number, if they have it, just whatever information we can get here. And then if we're going to ask, is this going to be replaced? Will this policy be used as a source of financing? Then just your pretty standard, I think they're pretty standard for most final expense and life insurance type of policies here. So the goal now is, so now we're almost to, we've gone through the health history. Then it's going to list here, there's this optional, this place to add additional information. It is optional. What this would be utilized for. So the first thing is, I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with different enrollment platforms, different carriers. I know coming from Aflac, one of the things that we used to not do, and this will tell my age and how long I've been with Aflac, but a long time ago, there was an enrollment platform called SNG or Smart App, and there was a place you'd have to create transmittals, and there was a place for you to add comments. But you quickly learned that if you did that, it would automatically cause all that business to pinned, right? And hold up it being processed and all of that. So I point that out because, if you're familiar with that, or if other carriers may have kind of a similar process, that does not happen here with this, right? So the underwriting process is done like, it's done in a whole different way. Adding something here actually may speed up the underwriting process. So if something is in here, it will not automatically kick it out for somebody to review or for it to go through underwriting. But what you want to put here would be things like when we looked at the drug list, right? And there was that one medication that said, hey, if they're taking this drug for multiple sclerosis, then, this may disqualify them or make them ineligible for a certain rate. A lot of drugs, though, are used kind of off-label, right? Or, it may be prescribed for one, but, it's used for something else. So if they are taking a drug for, you've looked at that drug list, and that drug's listed there, but they're taking it for a different condition, that's going to be the type of information that I would put here. So I may put this person is taking whatever that Duramax or whatever, but they are taking it for, vertigo, not MS, like whatever that system may be. So that is the type of information I would put here. A lot of times too, people can get misdiagnosed with things. So maybe somebody was diagnosed with one condition, and then it turns out after a few more years, they got some new doctors, new testing, and they're like, oh, you actually don't have this. It was something else. That's usually, hopefully, great news. Hopefully that it wasn't, the original diagnosis. Maybe they were diagnosed with something better. But if you think from an underwriting perspective, that original incorrect diagnosis may still be in their medical files. It may still be in their health history that is pulled. So if that was the case, that's something else that you may want to put here. Then you just go through. So now that we know, based off of Peter Pan's health questionnaire that he gave us, he most likely is going to be eligible for this standard plan. This is where you can kind of solidify or put into stone, okay, here's what the monthly premium is going to be, here's the amount of coverage that you want. So now that we've gotten through that health questionnaire, I can come here and adjust this as needed. So if I wanted to maybe update that to 15,000, I'm going to requote, and it's going to, maybe if I do it twice, adjust the premium. There we go, based off of the new amount, and I can adjust that up or down. I don't have to go through the questions again. This is where we can kind of agree upon, all right, how much does he want? And so now I'm going to take it down to 10,000. I'm in the sandbox, so it makes me do it twice, but that's okay. And so now we're under the $50. Again, I'm going to add the accelerated death benefit just for the option. If they wanted the accidental death, I think that's a pretty good price for that. Non-forfeiture option for final expense, I recommend extended term. And it'll tell you here that is the default. The final expense is technically a whole life product. But typically, it's not enforced long enough, and the face amounts are not high enough really for any type of automatic premium loan or paid up insurance really for it to accumulate. So extended term for final expense is, in my opinion, and what they default it to, is the best option. And then, so this is where we can finalize all of those. This is where it can get kind of tricky, right? So I'm going all the way back up to the top because, this is all kind of common stuff. But up at the top is a very important question. And it says, by making the following choices, you will speed up the time to process and provide the best blah, blah. If the policy cannot be issued as applied for, would you accept a rated policy if available? So what that is saying is, hey, we're going to take you at your word based on how you answer the questions and say you're eligible for the standard, right? Here's the pricing, here's the amounts. Once we submit the application, though, it is going to pull a prescription history check, right? And so from all these databases, it may pull information from the MIB or Medical Information Bureau. So what this is saying is that, hey, once we actually pull your health profile, and I always kind of relate it to if you are applying for a credit card online, you can put in all your information, right? Like how much do you make, what is this? But then when you submit it, they're going to pull your credit report, right? And then based off of that, they're going to instantly say you're either approved or denied. Same thing happens here. So think about that health questionnaire is you just putting in, answering yes or no. Once the application is submitted, it's going to do its own verification. What this is asking is if something comes back in that verification process and you're not able to get this $10,000 at this price point, would you accept a different variation of that? And you can either answer that as yes or no. If you answer it as no, and there is something flagged in the underwriting process that would, maybe not make them eligible for the standard level, then it would just immediately decline the application and it'd be done, right? If you do say yes, then it's going to say, okay, well, what is more important? Do you want to keep the premiums around the same and adjust the coverage? Or do you want to keep the coverage and just adjust the premium, right? What's more important? 9 times out of 10, if you do say yes, they want to adjust the face amount, right? They're trying to stay around that price point. That is what happens in that scenario. Now, that is not a guarantee that it would change and they're not going to be eligible. It's just all based on what happens when they do the official kind of underwriting and do the official pull of this person's health and prescription history. So again, 2 ways to go about it. If you don't like the uncertainty or the, hey, that could happen, you can always just leave this as no, right? Or if you leave it at yes, just know, okay, we're going to keep it as close to $49 as possible. But if they know, hey, I've got 10,000, I need that 10,000, no matter what the cost is, if it goes up a few dollars, that's when I would say keep the same amount of insurance. So that's what that question is. And that's kind of what happens based on how that question is answered. Say, okay. Rest of this is just pretty standard, right? You guys know how to, if we got the socials here. Anything that is this nice 80s mauve countertop color is required. Number is required. And then other. Percentage. And really just 1 or 2 more points to make and we'll have gone through it. All right, leaving it all to my dog. All right, the owner is always going to be the proposed insured.
Hey, Sam, real
Yes.
quick, question popped up from Phil. Said if a client expires during the first 2 years on an illness, is there any payout?
We will return whatever premiums have been received. Yeah, great question.
Thanks, Sam.
Right. Now we get into the funding. For final expense, we can only accept ACH. So we do have to have a routing and account number. Right, so we're going to put this in here. Is it not? Okay, that was weird. Right, so now that we've got the payment information in here, this is the next last point. So payment, because this can also cause friction from like a customer service kind of perspective and communicating like expectations to the customer, especially because I know every carrier can do things a little bit different. So when it comes to payment method, EFT is just going to be, it's going to come out on the same date of the month of every month, right? So if we chose the 15th, it's going to initiate payment on April 15th, May 15th, June 15th, July 15th, right? Then there's a thing called SS billing. Social Security billing has zero to do with Social Security at all. It's just called that. What that would allow you to do would be if somebody preferred to have their payments drafted on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday of every month, that is the option that would allow you to do. You cannot change the day of the week. It couldn't be like every other Friday, or the second, third, or fourth Friday. It is only second, third, or fourth Wednesday of each month. It is named Social Security billing because way back when Social Security used to be paid out to people based on their birth date on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday. So it used to coincide with that. That is not the case for most Social Security recipients anymore, but this is just still a payment method that is in place. So I'm just going to go with EFT because that's what we're used to. As far as I said, I wanted to come out on the 15th. This is the next where I was saying everything can vary from carrier to carrier, and that is this draft initial premium, right? Because especially if if you're familiar with old school just Aflac, right? You could have a policy. We're going to say, okay, I'm going to sign you up for a policy, and we're going to make it go into effect May 1st. What that means is on May 1st, that is the earliest Aflac's going to try to draft that payment, right? Here, though, when it has draft initial premium, there's two options. It could be on policy effective date, but there's also the option for upon policy approval. On policy approval is also what it defaults to. So if in this case we had requested a May 1st effective date, and we're just in the habit of saying, okay, yeah, May 1st is going to be your effective date, and that's when we're going to draft the premium. If I don't make myself or remember to come in here and change this from on policy approval to on policy effective date, if this is processed and approved today, and I told them, hey, we're not going to take your money until May 1st, what's going to happen is today on April the 12th, we're going to draft $52 from his account, right? And then have a very unhappy customer. So if they want to take the money out immediately, then leave it at the default of upon policy approval, right? And just note that their coverage wouldn't start until whatever their requested effective date was. But because that is different, and especially because the default is different from, especially if you're just used to traditional Aflac, that can cause a lot of chaos sometimes. So I'm going to change it to on policy effective date. And then it's going to take us through. With this, you shouldn't have to do, this is all part of the setup. So we're going to mail the policy to the applicant. And I'm going to, at this point, start the signing process. And this happened to me before, and I emailed them to see why, and I don't know what's going on, if it's something to do with my profile or what, but it won't allow me to move forward with the signature process, because I've tried this. It's always the same. This happened a few days ago, so I'm not going to waste time kind of trying to figure it out. This is as far as it will allow me to go. But when you start the signing process, the last step is going to be, you sign it, and then you have two options for them to sign. You can do text or e-signature. E-signature is your traditional. It's going to email them the document. They have to pull it up. They can review everything, type in their name for the e-signature, and it's done. The text option is where you can put in their cell phone number, hit send, and it will send them a code. And in the call, they can give you that code, and there's a place for you to type that in, and that serves as their signature, right? So just ask for where the phone number they want to receive that text at. You put that information in and you click send, and then right under that, it'll have, customer code. They should immediately get a text and be able to give you, it's like a 6 or 7 number code. You type that in, and that is what serves as their signature. So those are the two methods. Also, what's going to happen then, so once that application is done, it at that point is going to do that extra underwriting we were talking about, where it's going to pull information from the prescription databases that are out there, the medical information databases that are out there. Now, you can go into the dashboard under your pending business, and you're going to be able to see everything. Chances are we want it to just immediately go through, right? So if there's no red flags, it's going to be approved. It's going to show, wouldn't even show in your pending business. It would just be under your in the dashboard under my business as processed, approved, ready to go. If there was something that was flagged through one of those databases, then it is going to, if you go under your submitted policies for pending submitted policies, it'll show like pending, active, whatever. Under pending, it's going to show this yellow dot, and it means it's routed to underwriting. In that scenario, there is nothing that you need to do. So there's no action required by the agent. What that then means is that the underwriting will actually have analysts reach out. Typically what they're going to do is they're going to first review any notes that you may have put in there. So that optional field where you could put, hey, they're taking this medication for something else, they're going to review that and see if they could confirm that, based on the medical history or a misdiagnosis, something like that. Then if they're unable to do that or no information's there, they may reach out to providers or reach out to the actual applicant themselves for additional clarification, but they will process that. There's nothing further you have to do. Or if for some reason it was just showed up as declined, it would immediately show you that as well. So that would be it. And where I'm talking about with that is under my business. You're going to have, you've got your business dashboard and then your pending business. So that's where you'd be able to go and check those. This one will look insane. I don't even know if it will pull up since I was just in there, but that under my business, that's where you'll be able to find the dashboard. It's going to have, all the policies that have been issued, and then my pending dashboard. But the pending dashboard, the nice thing is that updates real time. So if you go to my pending dashboard, here we go. And if we were to here. Just final expense. This might look insane because it has, I believe, all agencies, or maybe not. I don't have any pending business. Look at there. Yeah, okay. So apparently they're working on this one too. But so it's gonna, and it'll have here, click on the purple, check auto underwriting to get automated decisions. You may do this multiple times. So the reason I'm pointing this out up here is if you go into the details of each one that would be listed here, you can refresh it because they are updated. So before lunch, it may show pending. You go to lunch, you come back, you pull it up, you refresh. It may show as approved or hopefully not declined, but it can't update. It's not run on a batch or overnight or anything like that. So you should be able to get those real-time decisions there. So I know I'm at 3 minutes over, but Dave, are there any other types of questions or comments or concerns or just entertainment from the words Sam. I was making up?
No, you did fantastic. Thank you, Sam. We love Aflac. Quick question: is the contest that we've run always in the past for the quarter, is that contest going over the cash for FE happening in Q2 as well? Do you know off the top of your head?
Don't know off the top of my head.
No
I
worries.
don't.
We'll
I
find out.
can, yeah. I would reach out, probably Christy would probably have that, so she'd be able to tell you where they stand with the contest information. I don't know if they've got it approved to run over them.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Guys, any
All right.
questions further for Sam? We appreciate it, Sam. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, you too. I see a nap time in my future.
I do too. I do too. Thanks,
All
Sam.
right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Hey, one final thing, team, that I want to mention before we turn you loose. I know it's 4 minutes after. Paul, you want to pop up the cruise one more time? Guys, I want to remind you guys, you know, we've been blessed to go on a lot of really cool trips with Aflac over the years. And a lot of times they're so far away. The trip is so far away that it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around. Guys, 14 final expense applications, and I don't care what carrier it's with. Love for it to be Aflac, but I'm super cool with it to be Great Western or Transamerica or Corebridge or any of the others. But guys, this trip goes out in August, the end of August. What an amazing time to be in the land of the midnight sun and to get up there into Alaska. What a perfect time to go. And it's not way out in the future, guys, just 14 applications. And by the way, 14 applications equates to about $10,000 in your pocket in advance commissions. So anyway, I just want a quick reminder, guys, 14 apps by the end of June, and you're on a cruise in August to Alaska. So Paul, Jesse, Bo, anything else from you guys?
Nope, we'll cut you loose. Just say thank you for what you're doing. Let's continue to have some fun and making a difference, making some money.
Awesome. Thanks, gang. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone.